Hello, welcome once again to everydayhdr.com. My name is Blake Rudis, and today I want to talk about creative post-processing in Camera Raw. Now, in order to set this up, we're going to go to Edit, we're going to go to Preferences, go to Camera Raw, and then change this to automatically open all supported TIFFs. Because what I'm going to be doing is opening up a TIFF image that it was a 5 exposure HDR image that I took into Photomatix, 5 exposures into Photomatix, and created a HDR image from it. So most people know Camera Raw to be a place where you make a raw image look better, or maybe a TIFF image that you brought in from Photomatix, which is typically my workflow. Is after I've gone into Photomatix, I come in here to Camera Raw and make it look better. But one of the things that people kind of overlook is the creative power of Camera Raw. So I think I might do a series on creative post-processing in Camera Raw, and the first one here today is going to be a cross-processing effect. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to set myself up for the template that I'm going to create. So to do that, I'm going to drop the vibrance down to 0, bring the saturation up to 100, and then move the clarity up to about 40-ish, somewhere in there. Now, this is an HDR image, and typically when you add a lot of clarity to an HDR image, it gets pretty contrasty in those mid-tone areas and starts to look, well, for lack of better words, like crap. So if I bring this all the way up, it's looking really contrasty in those areas, which is kind of cool for this grungy effect of this photo, but it's not that great for other ones. So I'm going to keep this pretty conservative at about plus 40. If it's a regular photograph, just regular exposure, it's not HDR, you can kind of get a pseudo HDR effect with that clarity slider. So the next thing I'm going to do is go into the split toning section of Camera Raw, which is the 5th one in from the left on the little palette you have here. So what I want to do is, I can't really pull my color wheel over right now. I'll pull my color wheel over when we're done with this. But what I want to do is select complementary colors for my cross-processing effect. This is something, I'm not sure if this is something everyone does. It's just something that I like to do for my HDR images when I cross-process them, is to pick complementary colors, because complementary colors have always worked since the beginning of history of art. You know, you have yellow, you use purple as a complement to accent the yellow, and vice versa. People even do this in fashion, you know, use complementary colors. It's just, they go together, green and red. It's Christmas, they go together, complementary colors. So use the complementary colors of one another for your cross-process. So to do that, I'm gonna get a yellow color, and I have this kind of preset already to 65. I want the saturation of that to be about 55. So you see the image is already starting to look a little bit yellow in those highlighted areas. Now for the shadows, because I chose a yellowish color, I'm going to want something that's more of a purple color. And a good purple color right here in the hue section is about 295. And bring that saturation up to about 30. Now, we're seeing a lot of purple in this image. The great thing here is you have a balance slider. You can control the balance of what colors show up in your cross-process effect. So for this one, I kind of want the yellow to show up a little bit more because it brings out the brick a little bit more. So that balance I'm going to put at about 35% because I still want some of the purple to show through in the shadows. So you can see we already have a pretty cool baseline here for a cross-process, maybe sepia look. So what you can do is go over here to the presets section, and you can save this as cross-process. I'm going to put yellow / purple. So now that's my template. I can bring any image in here, click that, and that's going to give me this template of my cross-process effect. Now I want to go back and adjust the exposure and maybe the contrast a little bit, adjust the highlights and the shadows, and really start to push and pull this this cross-process effect. And I'm just kind of playing here, kind of winging it. Now, there's some other creative things you can do with this too. Let's say you want this to look a little bit older. And an older photograph isn't going to have that really extreme contrast that you see here. So we're going to drop the clarity slider to about negative 40. So if you can see, what we've done here is you get a kind of like with that clarity slider drop down, we lose a lot of that mid-tone depth that we had before. But this is going to go great with our effect here. So in the effects, you can go to the grain, and you can add a lot of grain. So let's zoom in here and see what kind of grain we're adding. I'm going to add losing my slider here. Okay, there we go. Increase the size, maybe increase the roughness a little bit too. And then we have a older looking photograph where if you wanted to even bring that up, make it even look a little bit older, you can bring down the saturation and the colors in there. But one of the other cool things in the effects is you can add yourself a nice little vignette here. I usually leave the style at highlight priority, and I can start adding a vignette to this. Now, one of the cool things about adding a vignette is, you see how I just made it real dark? If you hold the Alt button and then move your midpoint slider, your roundness slider, or your feather slider, what you're going to see is the effect of your amount being at negative 100%. So it really lets you be able to see where your vignette is happening on your photograph. If I remove the Alt key, I don't see that high potency that I had here before. If I hold Alt and move this, it gives me a view of what's happening. And it's more important when you get into the roundness section to see where exactly your vignette is affecting this photograph. Same thing with the feather. You know, if we move the feather all the way down, you can see it there pretty easily, but holding Alt gives it that maximum potency. And then if you go to move the highlight slider, it'll preserve the highlights under there. So I kind of like that. So again, you could even save this whole thing as another template, but I like to do all of that background work later. So we can go ahead and open this as an object, and then I'll show you the color wheel. So if you don't know much about color, and most people do, but complementary colors are colors that appear opposite each other on the color wheel. Green and red are complementary colors. Let me get a drawing tool here. Let's see. Let's change this to black. And green and red are complementary colors. Purple and yellow are complementary colors. Orange and blue are complementary colors. And then these are also complementary colors as well. So anything you see across from each other on the color wheel is, in turn, a complementary color. So when you're doing your cross-processing, it's good to refer to a color wheel to see what colors are going to go well together. But you don't have to stick yourself with complementary colors. You can do split complements, tertiary colors, whatever. Or whatever you think just looks good. It's fine too. It doesn't matter. So I hope you enjoyed this creative post-processing in Camera Raw, this cross-process effect that we have here. Oops, let me go ahead and close this out. This is our final product. Pretty drastic difference than what we started with. And we can see that since we open this as an object, we can go double-click it, go back into the inside, and then go usually select the preview tab. But since it's a TIFF file, it opened it up already and saved the presets on it, so I can't really show you the before and after here. You can see the before and after on the website though. So I hope you enjoyed this creative post-processing in Camera Raw. Think outside the box with Camera Raw because it's very powerful. It can do a lot of things, and so can Lightroom. Lightroom and Camera Raw kind of work hand in hand. So think about that kind of stuff when you're processing photos. So it's not just a place to make a photo look better with your contrast, highlights, and shadows. It's also a place where you can do some creative work really easily and save them as templates to use on other things. My name is Blake Rudis. This is EverydayHDR.com. Have a great weekend and a Happy New Year.